Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be walking you through my Ableton production template. So I'm going to walk you guys through all the elements in my template and explain why I have things organized this way. To save your current session as a template, click Live in the top left-hand corner, Preferences, and then you'll find File, Folder, and Save Current Set as default. So I mentioned in my last video about my workflow that I created this template to match my workflow in Pro Tools. So you can see here that the colors of this template match the colors that I like to use in Pro Tools when I mix down. So my drums are baby blue, my bass is brown, my keys are always purple, my guitars are always orange, my synths are always green, all the way down the line, right? So when I import these into Pro Tools, those are the colors that I'm used to seeing. So why not just make my template, my production template, follow that rule? More importantly, the order of these tracks also follows my mix template. So when I'm mixing down a song, I have my kick at the top, work my way down my drums, then the bass. So the naming convention for my production template is that each track is numbered and each track is named. The naming avoids me from printing any stems that are called audio or MIDI or anything like that. I hate getting stems that are just called audio 001. I don't want to have to listen and figure out, is this a snare or something? Like, just give me a stem with the proper name. So I don't want to do that to myself. Every track is named. The numbering, because Pro Tools imports things alphanumerically, if I keep the numbers in the names, when I import these stems into Pro Tools, it'll follow the order that I like to keep my tracks in. So essentially with this template, while I'm producing, I just drag my samples and my loops and instruments and all this stuff into these pre-made tracks, and each track has its own presets on it, so I can just get right to work, get started right away. Now if I scroll through these tracks, there are effects that I normally use on each track already. So I made a video recently about using the Ableton stock saturators a bit warmer in conjunction with the glue compressor on my kicks. If you look at my kick track, it's already there. I already know that I want to go and use these elements, so I just have them on the track, but they're inactive. If I want to use it, it's there. There's no, let me go find the saturator, let me search for it, and all this stuff. Let's just cut down all the time that I can so I can get the fastest result possible. So if I continue scrolling, you'll notice that there's an EQ8 on each track, right? I'm going to EQ at some point while I'm producing, right? I think it's fair to say most people EQ while they're producing. So again, let's just cut down the time it takes me to reach for my EQ8 and just slap it on all my tracks. But even more than that, it's not only in my template, the EQ8 is part of the default setting for my audio tracks and my MIDI tracks. I've also set the output on the fader for all my tracks to -15. That's also set to be defaulted to my audio tracks and my MIDI tracks. In this way, I'm ensuring that I have headroom on my master fader. As I mentioned before, Ableton sounds its worst when you clip the master fader. So just in an effort to I'm thinking ahead, in an effort to avoid losing my headroom, I already have my tracks gain staged to leave me about 6 dBs of headroom. So you can see mine opens up with the -15 and the EQ8. Yours is not going to have that. Yours is going to be set to 0 and no EQ8. So let's go ahead and slap the EQ8 on there. Let's make it inactive, just to save what little CPU that uses. And then we'll go ahead and lower the volume to -15. Now once that's done, you can just right-click the name audio and choose Save Default here. And then I just did the same thing for my MIDI track. I believe you have to have a plugin on to save a default MIDI track, so I think I just kept it consistent. Let's do it to my audio, why not? So I'm just going to run you through a bunch of these sounds that I have saved in my template. You can see there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of different options already in the session. So that way if I have an idea, it's not about, let me find silent and drag it in. Okay, what pack do I want to use? No, I want a bass. I have 5 or 6 basses I can choose from. Oh, this needs a lead or a chord. I have a bunch of synths that are already they're already there, ready to go. Maybe that's not the sound that I'll end up with at the end, but it's a good starting point. So let's take a look at some of these sounds. Beneath the drums, you'll see electric bass. That's an audio track that I have routed to one of the inputs on my interface. So if the beat needs an electric bass, I just pick up the bass, plug it into my patch bay, and I'm ready to go. The 808 track is just an empty MIDI track that I like to either drag 808 Warfare into or any one of the 808 samples that I have. And I'll normally use a simpler or like another sampler plugin to really dial in the 808 that I like. The next one down is Spire Bass. This is just like a classic FM punchy bass for like house tunes or new EDM tunes. It's very dancey. It's my go-to just to get some ideas out and write some bass lines with for like dance tracks. If I'm making a houseier tune, right beneath that we have the Moog bass. That's Sylenth. I believe it's on their first page of presets when you just get the stock synth. But this has been all over my productions lately. At least 2 of my last dance tracks have this on there, and it sounds great. Again, it's just about having options. The next option down is just a classic respace. Again, just comes stock with Sylenth. The next sound down is actually a sound I found this morning while I was making sure I liked my template for this video. I heard it and I was like, you know what, this needs to be in more of my productions. So I called it Squelch Bass. It's actually a lead sound that comes stock with Sylenth. But I mean, I think you guys will like it. I definitely do. So the next track down is called Spire Chords. It's exactly what it sounds like, just basic chords. It's from the Alonso Gold Spire pack for EDM. It's called Backing Chords. Again, it sounds great. It's just nice, soothing chords for me to just kind of work out ideas or chord progressions, things like that. So if I like the progression and I think, okay, this is good for the build up, but I need something, this needs like a lead sound. This needs like a lead chords or something like that. The next track down is a Sylenth lead, which is just, it's basically the opposite of backing chords. It's really aggressive and harsh, like drop chords or chorus chords. The next 4 synths I actually got from KVR Audio, I believe. I forget the manufacturer, but if I can remember, I'll put a link down in the description. Essentially, they're emulations of the Jupiter 8, the Minimoog, the Prophet 5, and the SH-101. So the Jupiter is loaded up not to the classic Jupiter chorusy synth sound. I actually found this preset that came with this pack of kind of like the filter oscillating on itself. It sounds really nice. This has gone on a couple of beats of mine in the last few months. Just a really nice little pluck sound. Next down is the Minimoog. It's not set to anything particular like anything else. If I decide, you know what, nothing's really working, let me just make my own bass, that's really what I use a Minimoog for, just to kind of dial in ideas and just to play around with. Next is the Prophet 5. This one is set to a more classic sounding Prophet sound. Again, if I'm just working out ideas, it's also good to layer underneath things to kind of add depth and things like that. And last but not least is the SH-101. Very similar to the Minimoog. It's not set to anything particular, but if I can't really find the sound that I like, or I just want to mess around on the song, I'll just pull this up and start turning knobs. So let's go ahead and take a look at the guitar and melody loop tracks. If I open both of these up, you'll see that they're routed to get their inputs from input 1. And that's because input 1 on my interface is a high Z input. If I'm thinking that this beat needs a guitar or needs something from my JW50 over here, I don't want to have to create an audio track and then set the routing to input 1 and then find the effects that I like to use. That's already 3 or 4 steps that I'm just wasting time at that point, right? So let's just have that track ready with the routing done and all the plugins that I think I might use. That way, all I have to do, pick up my patch cable that I have, dead patched into my patch tray over here, plug in my guitar, and I'm recording guitar. Or I can just pick the dead patch up, plug it into the JW50 output, I'm recording my JW50. So the good thing about these being audio tracks is that I can either record my own loops or samples, or I can just drag audio in there, let's say like a melody loop sample or something, and already the effects that I like to use are on the track. So I'm just cutting down wasted time everywhere I can. So that's my production template. Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed. This isn't really about copying my production template, although I'm not saying not to do that. I did show you everything that I have for a reason. But that being said, it's more about finding the elements that you want to have in your template so that once you open up your DAW, you can just get right to work. Having the sounds you like to use, having the chains you like to use. And now this isn't just an Ableton template, right? You should be able to apply this technique to any DAW you're using, whether it's Logic, Pro Tools. I have a template in Pro Tools for when I'm mixing a track. I have a template in Pro Tools for when I'm producing a track. Any DAW that you are working in, you should have a decent template so that once you open it up, you can get right to work. Once again, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more tutorials.